journey, huh? This life. We have so much to discover, so much to uncover. So much dying and so much living, waiting. And yet everything is right now. It's funny, isn't it? The fact that everything is the case right now. The art of letting go without believing that something is wrong. It's the art of living, isn't it? The art of dying in life. We run into some tough times now and then. But actually everything is a lesson, isn't it? Everything. Everything is an invitation to unlearn everything and let life, to let being learn within itself. We can allow that. That's such beauty unfolding, both in the hard times and otherwise. All of you are sitting here right now, and that means that we're walking together. So despite the fact that we in one sense always are alone, we're never alone. Life is always and in every moment inviting you deeper into itself, deeper into your recognition. To let go deeper. To let it be the case. There's great freedom in that. There's also great responsibility in that. Because your willingness to hold your life, to hold life, to let life be the case, it's a great gift. Including the responsibility to take care. Taking care as in delivering yourself in every moment to truth. Such an interplay in a way. Such a play between our conscious selves and its willingness to surrender, its willingness to do its best, its willingness to apply truth across everything. And that intrinsic dance with being itself, the opening happening to allow being to be the case. Yeah. It's the eternal paradox. It's a game which we can only lose by not playing it. Because when we are allowing life to be the case, learning becomes the case. Learning within being becomes the case. And to the extent that we're not allowing that to be the case when life is the case, that's where we will get a slap over the fingers. But it's so intelligent. All of this is so intelligent that pain is not something to be avoided. That's equal to avoiding life. Because pain is the indicator. Pain indicates an invitation deeper into yourself. Deeper into the resolution of your identity. Deeper into the resolution of your relationship with everything. And right there, nothing can be excluded. Every single angle of your living life is included in that. That complete inclusion of everything within your living life, inside yourself, inside the authority of your own life, becomes that merging between an inner holding of yourself and the living out of that, the living out of everything as truth. There are so many things we have to face along the way of that. In a way you could say we have to face every opposite there ever was. But rather than making that fact a reason to put ourselves in a place of confusion, we can allow it to become the complete empowerment of our willingness to dedicate ourselves to truth. It becomes a complete annihilation of right and wrong, which comes to rest inside your own surrender to truth and whatever that surrender wants to show you. Whatever angle of reality wants to be uncovered at this point in time, and then at that point in time. We're not talking about reaching a state of anything. If anything, we're talking about passing every state possible, to acknowledge the reality of no state, which becomes the reality of every state. A liberation from the part of being caught up in anything, including states. Because right there is a fertile soil for truth to be truly born. Not as a focus on that, not as a focus on this. Everything as one big uncovering of reality, one big merging with Source. And a true and more transparent manifestation of Source. We're on a great journey. And a lot of this can be pointed back to your way of looking at reality. Your willingness to be with everything. Or for some people the opposite, choice to run away from everything. The deeper and deeper drop into life happens at point zero. And that point zero is when you are silent with yourself. That of course it calls for a breaking down of all of the ideas and judgments, all of the assumptions and beliefs. And also the attachments. And when I say losing the attachments, I see a good handful of heads popping into the idea of transcendence as being out of here. But that's not what it's about. Can we stand fully willing to embrace this without grasping it? We are so darn lucky to be alive. There is such beauty here. So all of this comes down to how much beauty you can take without grasping it. Because that will decide how free you can be here. It's not the same as killing the enjoyment. But can we let the joy be joyful? Can we let the sadness be sad? Can we be with all of this without that attempt to manipulate? Without saying yes to this and no to that? And now I just saw the minds go in this direction, so now I have to say that it's not about saying yes to everything. It's about listening so deeply that it's the truth that happens out of our willingness to listen, out of our willingness to let that happen, which wants to happen from a much deeper place than our opinions, our beliefs, and our assumptions. Can we let yes be yes and no be no? The human is magnificently fear-based. It's not a bad thing. It's just how it is. To start out with, it's a protection, if you will. But with our willingness to discover, with our willingness to not take ourselves so darn seriously, with our willingness to lose the attachment to our identity, with our willingness to see, with our willingness to be, there is an invitation. There, all of a sudden, that thick line becomes a thin line, which allows us to drop deeper and deeper into that self-discovery. And it's not fun for that part, which feels that it needs to cling to something, which feels that it needs the safety. Because life offers no safety. And why? Because life is safety. Protecting ourselves from life will never be safety. Surrender is safety. Why? We're not clinging to the idea that we're alone, to the idea of being separated. Hell of a lot of work, yes. Being torn to pieces, yes. Great adventure, yes. Outstanding freedom, yes. Easy, no. But it's almost like whatever courage we find to dedicate ourselves right now For every step we dare to take, our dedication grows stronger. Our courage to allow the next step becomes stronger. Because what happens when we apply ourselves, when we allow ourselves to surrender, to let truth be the case, is that becomes more and more the way of life. That becomes a greater and greater living reality as you. There is nothing wrong with fear. But the moment that there is fear of fear, fear of being afraid, that sucks. If we're willing to face whatever is offered in that willingness to look, if we're willing to become one with everything and to deal with everything from a place of not knowing anything, from listening and allowing truth to be the case, and right there's that opening. Right there's the fall. That falling into truth, which has no permanent destination. If there are any areas in need of clarification, feel free to make a hoot if anything should appear.
I would like to clarify something. After India, when I got back, there was this Rose race. Stephen was gone. Nothing was needed, and it lasted for like a month, 6 weeks or something. Mm-hmm. Then something saw it and was thinking, this is nice, and then all the mind came back. Mm. And it's like my mind is using what happened to like saying it should be like that. It left me with peace and certain clarity. Mm-hmm. And I would just like to know if it was supposed to be like that all the time.
Stateless state. I can tell you that whatever state you will enter, a part of a constant just means that something is stuck somewhere. Because when life flows, it's about learning within your being that inner gesture of transforming life as it happens into space. So that happening there of, there was the resolution. That the movement itself, it was not about the state, but the movement that was made from that someone and into the no one. That movement there was the first time you've done that. But once it's happened once, then that knowing, that learning, exactly that movement within your being is that which makes it possible to not strive for a state or believe that it's supposed to be like this or like that, but to allow the pure tantra to be the case. And that means allowing the full embodiment where life happens, but every that identity which rises with sexual energy, that the moment that life rises if you learn that transformation within your being, then that someone which rises there will be instantly turned into nothing. And right there is not about attaining the nothing. It's not about reaching that state. It's about learning that inner gesture which allows that constant transformation of life. Because right there, realization is an endless journey. Right there, the learning within being is constant and ongoing and becomes a greater and greater uncovering of yourself as source. So something which is trying to find an end to something, that part you can put away. But that which is seeing the validity in that which was clear, that which was uncontained, that which was free, that's valid. So you're going to have to figure out, you can't do it from here, but within your being, you're going to have to watch and learn how to make that movement.
Well, it's happening. It's just someone comes in and tell me, you have to be in that state all the time.
Yeah, but sounds very appealing. At least for that someone who doesn't want to go through that pain of learning that inner gesture. Yeah. There's no doubt that it's very nice to be in and as that silence. But it's only a part of the story, you know? And in many ways you could also see by what happened as the unfolding of your life right there, that happening of the story meant that life didn't happen. It's like everything stopped, because then all of a sudden it was about the state and not about allowing life to be life. And right there, if you want to look at it, you have the recognition of nothing, which is valid. But then you have life. And the moment that identification and attachment happens towards nothing, then it doesn't allow existence to be existence. Because right there, the body is not free. Life is not free. Because the moment it does something, then all of a sudden the ignorance is back. So again, instead of focusing on a state or a specific realization, then allowing that invitation and allowing the unfolding to happen across everything, and I have found to be of much greater value than all of these different states I could have been clinging to, but chose to let go of. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a way, it's always there.
Of course. I mean, this is the nature of realization. That the reality of nothing is always the case. Just as everything is always the case. But within that, there is also that invitation of the individual you. The individual soul, which has nothing to do with identification, which is more about a recognition of that soul.
Yeah, that's a little bit funny, because I never felt individual. Always felt melting together with everything. And after this, it was like an individuality came with it.
There are many discoveries to be made. Yeah. Consider yourself a weed in the garden of spirituality, you know? Yes. Yeah. Instead of making one recognition more valid or more important than another.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Yeah. I feel like talking to you guys a little bit about uncovering the messy parts. Right? Yeah. I mean, we have several dimensions to learn within. But one of them is the gut. And it requires our purification. In a way you could say it's transcending the identification from the gut. And a full invitation of our individuality through that embrace. I found that I can transcend in so many ways and disappear out of existence by falling into the headspace. I can become everything by taking my seat in the heart. Or I can take my seat in my stomach, where all of a sudden there's an individuality, an individual soul, ever so sweet, ever so fine. A quality of me which is connected to my human being. And for that part to be free, and for a spiritual maturation within that dimension, I could say that that's where it really requires the willingness to go through the shit, in a way I could say. It's somewhat much easier to embrace spirituality from the place of everything is light and the God realization, or even it's all nothing, I don't have to look at that, also easier. But the coming into the earth and the embrace of the maturity of our man or woman requires something completely different. In a way I could say that all of these recognitions are different. They have each their logic, so to speak. But the working with the gut is very much about claiming the integrity of pure being as ourselves, the embodiment, the integration. And when I say claiming, I actually mean it, because this is where the individuality and its conscious choices comes into the picture. There's such a beauty to be uncovered in that. And in one sense, it's the deepest possible meeting with power. In the heart, we embrace love. In the head, we embrace space. But in the gut, it's power. And for the alignment of everything to happen, when coming into that stomach, when coming into the gut, in one sense, it's a complete disempowerment, and in another, it's the birth of pure power as being. How can it be both? Because with the loss of identification in the stomach, then there is only obedience left. Obedience in its greatest respect for everything. obedience which doesn't choose anything over anything else. Obedience which doesn't disown any part of the equation. Not the humanness, not the divinity, and not the void. And that equation demands everything from us. Because it demands us to take full responsibility all the way into our human, in terms of our relationship with everything. The key point to that, coming into that full responsibility, is our relationship with everything. So even here we have to fall in love. When I say this about the 3 dimensions, please don't consider it to be, it's not as simple as you realize that here and that there, and it's like that recognition, and each logic becomes a fully blown recognition. And that means that when that God opens, one's entire being is filled up by that logic. Just like when that recognition of space is there, there is a full recognition that the body doesn't exist. Yeah. So it's very all-inclusive. Every part of the equation is all-inclusive. And yet none of them are complete without the other. Isn't that funny? Is there something to be said about those messy bits? I can say that we are, as humans, we are incredibly opinionated about the fact of being human. Not even from the beginning do we actually own the reality of being human. So the birth into human or humane comes with that full responsibility of falling in love with her, with the earth. To come into an agreement of no opinion about all the different angles, specifically the ones that we don't like. Every angle of our human being. To come to see the sameness in that. To lose the opinion about that, despite the fact that we have been filled up with opinions about this. Because that's how we learned to behave. To come into a place of being able to be with the parts of you which holds the feelings that none of us really like to feel, like anger or fear. These things, we really like to close our eyes to them because we don't like the feeling. But again, here's an opinion. So to be able and willing to crawl into every corner of your human being and discover the whole range of the human feeling piano. And to lose the opinion against parts of that piano. That starts making room. That starts making space around our humanity. And it starts creating a space which, in our recognition as space, becomes a maturation. A birth into the earth. We can pretend that is not there. But there is great anger placed in the bottom of all of us. It's a great fuel for the birth of truth. So where are you at? What's going on with you?
I have a thing about relationship, connection with other people. It's like when you talk about anger, it's actually something I deal with in many life circumstances, that when people actually meet me from the gut with their anger or sexuality, whatever, it's like, I mean, we have the capacity to meet it from a wrong place. It's the heart or the emptiness. It's like, actually I think what I meet is mainly my own fear. Yeah. Then I get paralyzed when I interact with another being from such a deep level. And yeah, then I don't know actually what to do, because there's no logic that really works from that place. It's like, pull myself together in character? No, it doesn't work. Yeah, so it's like, I don't know how to surrender into that. Except by saying that this creates fear. That's the only truth I know in that moment.
There is a great fear in that meeting with power.
Yeah.
And we can wrap it in different wrappings. One of them being that most of us have had unpleasant meetings with abuse of power from other people. But there is also, on even deeper levels, there is the fact that our meeting with power in ourselves is a meeting with the Black Mother. And it's all of those things that we fear within ourselves, because we fear that power, because it has no respect for our judgments. And that means that in that very meeting, there is a purification waiting to happen for you. And that requires you to be willing to look into that part of yourself.
That has the power, or that has the fear?
I mean, the fear is just coming up against, it's keeping you from being directly in touch with that which is the deepest part of your gut. And I understand, because she has no respect for niceties.
No, it's like there's no movement possible from that. When I see that, it's like I don't have. It feels like I don't have access to that part of my being that could respond to that area. Yeah.
You can touch in on this in many different ways. One of the things around it is the purification of your relationship with your sexuality, for instance. An embrace of your willingness to stand in your own power, and that which actually has to go for that to be the case. There's a cracking within you that needs to happen, and the cracking is the fear. It's a cracking through the fear, because the fear becomes a container, a contaminator, like of keeping that power out of you and away from you, and it makes it. I mean, then if there is just that respect for that fear, rather than a willingness to meet the one who is afraid. Do you understand? It's like, instead of being afraid, respecting it and retracting, there can be a meeting with that fear, which is a willingness to be fully afraid. Because right there you're not separating yourself from that fear, which is closing you out from being in your gut.
I get that. Yes. But still, it's actually a new level as well when you speak about it, because it's quite unknown, that movement.
There's a time for everything. But
Yeah.
since you're sitting here, it could look like it's time.
Yeah.
That fear that happens inside of you,
Yeah.
in our connection, it's connected to this.
Yeah.
We just get to see where that contraction is.
It is in the gut. Very clearly.
But with that access, there is also the option to be there, to see there, and to, as love, take responsibility there. The moment where we get in trouble with this embrace of the stomach is if we try to apply the bliss, love and light to the deepest core of the earth. Because she's about the snakes, the bugs, and all of those things that we like to do like this to, you know? Her face is death, but it's also the recognition that life and death is the same thing. That dying and coming to life happens in the exact same moment. That the creation and the destruction is always the case at the exact same point of existence, which is being here. What is also a very significant part of this is your relationship with pain. Because a part of cracking open here, it is painful. I mean, cracking open here, it's all painful in its own way. But the pain here doesn't just open up for, I mean, it's an opening up to everything. Everything in every line of your being, everything that you're connected in with on every different level within existence comes in there.
That's my weak spot. It's like on a somatic level, like many of my issues is all in this area. Like, it's quite okay, not perfect, but the other areas is more in alignment. This area is really difficult to embrace or deepen into, because it's when the pain or the discomfort arises in that area. It's like a membrane in a way that's hard to penetrate in a way. It's not as easy to embrace. It's like it feels sometimes like it's not an option to go into it. Probably that's not true, but it feels like that.
Yeah, in a way you could say that you get as much as you can handle.
Yeah.
In terms of the depth that you will be able to move into.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not capable of moving into the depths now that you will be in a year from now.
Yeah.
Because that's a part of the evolution, you know?
Yeah.
But in a way I could say that, you know, there's like through all of spirituality and all of this, there's a lot of talk about this with paving the way from the heart to the head, yeah? This is actually about paving the same way from the heart into the gut. Because it's not just about dropping into the gut and then all of a sudden and leaving yourself as love behind. Because you're supposed to come into that gut as love. Your heart, your love, your acknowledgement of as the penetrator, I could almost say, is that which is to come deeply into matter. And that means that in a way there is that highway that needs to be paved between the heart and that center of the gut is, again, it's just connecting the alignment with whatever is fine here and fine here with this. Yeah. But whatever has been cultivated in other areas is translatable into that. Yeah.
Okay.
So you're just going to have to find the way around that, and that is with that constantly and unyielding willingness to meet yourself deeper and deeper. And I'm not just talking deeper, just deeper into this or deeper into that. I'm talking that way. And everyone is afraid of this. And why? Because every single instance of temptation, of different angles of being that can come out of that depth, is going to have to be handled by you. You're going to have to take responsibility for opening yourself and for going down into that depth. But it's like that which scares you down there, either it controls you, or in a way I could say you control it as love. Either you're the master of that or you're the slave of that. And that translation, of course, depends on you fully being willing to meet the pain of your depth, the pain of all of the misunderstandings which are combined with all of the little translations that has been made by a human being as it's had its experiences in life. But it's not just about your human being, because it's actually about dropping the bottom and coming straight into the earth. And that's how it can feel sometimes. It's kind of like giving birth. It's like allowing the energy to burst its way downwards as well.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being fully aligned with the willingness to direct that ship which you have been going that way with, to direct it that way?
Yes.
Nice.
I feel like sharing that. I was in an ayahuasca ceremony 2 weeks ago where actually a female demon arose from below and I became it.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like an kind of initiation or something like that. It was only like far away right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it was seeing a different dimension that at first was really scary, but afterward it was a beautiful feeling, a beautiful connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a more mature
Yeah.
embrace of the fact that everything is God, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Because the moment there's fear against these parts, then they become like a cut on the middle.
Yeah.
Become a bypassing of that part of you, which is deeply connected into the very instinct of the world, I could say.
It's like
the nature of you, yeah.
It's like often when I see people going into the gut, it's like I see the beauty of it, and I feel that there is some kind essential wisdom inside of it, though there could be different levels of maturity inside of it. But mainly I see this wisdom, but it's like strange to be able to see that, but not so often have because sometimes you just see people, they just move like a gut. They just move at that level in the world, and it's so beautiful. It's like so full on life for me, and when I see that. But with me it feels like staccato in a way. Sometimes there's a movement and whoa, something did happen at that moment. But then there's a pulling away, and also sometimes still no understanding. I'm showing of how. Because you can also go down into the gut and shout and yell, and that doesn't even feel true in the way that I have tried it in the past. It's like it's not that access I'm longing for.
It's not the authentic feeling into that. It's more like a going down and going up, yeah?
Yeah.
But it's still someone doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
really,
that deeper surrender from here and into there is what we would like to invite.
Yes.
That alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of the God inside the reality of truth, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would really like to invite that. Really deeply.
You're doing it.
Well, thank you. I don't know what to go, because right now it's like I feel the cue is also inviting it in, and also something about the understanding what you say about not fearing fear, really fully embracing it in a way so that it doesn't become a container, so that it becomes more transparent in a way. Is that on the track?
Break down your identity.
Break down my identity?
Around that. Again and again and again until fear no longer happens. As a part of the reality of being in your gut.
How should I break down my identity?
Let go. And say nothing else. It's an inner gesture of full willingness to be with, full willingness to take responsibility for being here. Here. Mm. Mm. In addition, is a total loss of control.
Mm.
Ouch. Yeah. Total loss of control. Mm. Mm.
Can you speak a little bit about anger in relationship to this?
A relationship with anger.
Yeah, because maybe it's something I have to discover, but I don't really get it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, there is pure anger, and then there is the projected, identified, not pure anger. There's the anger that comes as a projection outwards, and it's hurtful. But there is also the anger, which is, we could call it God's wrath, the pure anger. And that anger is not against anyone. It is only directed towards that which it rose for. But it's just love in the shape of fire. And thereby it doesn't have even a little seed of judgment within it. But it does have a full stop to that which is playing around, which is standing in front of you. To discover anger in its purest form, you have to look into your relationship with anger. Because if you don't like the feeling of anger, then you're somewhat bypassing on it. And that means that you're making a weird twist somewhere where something pure could be the case. Which could come out as straightness, as integrity. But not integrity of someone. It's more the integrity of everything, which is held in that anger. The integrity of truth across everything. Mm. And it has different phases. We'll say one phase is that is with the purification of the heart, and another phase is with the purification of the gut. With the heart, it's very much about that God's wrath thing. And that part has to be a part of it for the gut's reflection of anger not to be just a projection from identity. So in a way, it's like we have to discover, that part of uncovering pure anger is a part of paving that way from the gut to the heart. Because what comes inside of that is the integrity both of the individual human soul and its operation in the world, and thereby a deep functionality as human being. But also, in that's in its relationship with everything. So this is where the heart and the relationship with everything comes into that picture. Do you want me to do more?
Yes, I want to hear more of this.
It's almost like to be able to pass your own inner judgment on your anger, because no one likes anger. There's a deep resentment towards anger. It's told to not be nice, and in some spiritual circles it's even being used as a reflection of like, you're not okay. And if anything, that creates like an even greater anger from the integrity point, which then just becomes an even greater separation from truth integrated with everything. But to come into a total okayness with feeling your own anger in a way where you don't have to bypass on it by twisting it and making it into a projection, where you could come into a full recognition of there is anger.
So it's not about expressing it, it's about feeling it and allowing it.
It's like, I can say in my own relating, that anger, I mean, when I'm relating in terms from my human being, that relating with everything depends on my willingness to, and we're talking like this because it's happening so fast, but it's got the steps of the happening of anger, but instead of it just flying out, it has anger held inside in a conscious space, which then runs through the system in terms of the fact of no identification being the case. And from there, it can be expressed. But it's not right there. The anger is not about like a blow. It can still be an energetic push like this. But it's more like the power behind that which needs to come into place. Again, it depends on who the communication is happening with, because some people are incredibly insensitive, but some are not. So it's like it kind of measures itself out in terms of the communication. When is the communication straight? When there is a direct and unwrapped expression of this is okay, that's not okay, according to the integrity of everything. Because when something is pushing in to ignite anger in some way, it's never a clear thing. It's never the happening of love. And right there, that anger can be a reflection onto that situation as love. Yeah.
So if you start to cultivate this opening of the gut, then you're likely to experience this, what you're talking about.
Yeah. But this is also where that embracing of the gut, it really depends on our willingness to take full responsibility as human beings for anything within us which has that old conditioning of operating according to assumptions of this or that or the other thing, or even of self-judgment in this way or that way or the other way. Because the places where we're judging ourselves, we're likely to pick up on something, and then that becomes the background of some projection of anger. Do you understand? So it's like we have to be willing to meet the pain of all of our conditioned beliefs. Yeah. So if we're willing to do that, it's a piece of work. And it's not easy, and it's specifically not easy to start out with, because it's really unpleasant to start out with, to stand with that integrity. While not being completely in a place where you feel... not comfortable, but where you feel like sure in your movement. You understand? It's like you're moving. You're coming into a place where you have to be really aware not to create pain outside from unseen pain in you. But as long as we move into that with that willingness to take full responsibility, doesn't mean that we won't make mistakes. But if we're willing to learn through them and to feel what we're doing with our hearts, then all of a sudden we can learn within being. We have to have our hearts into this. Because otherwise we can't feel what we're doing. And then we're just creating more pain out of the pain that we haven't dealt with in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like that spiral that has been keeping on going for ages, and which we'd like to invite the stopping of now, by clearing out all of that old pain so that we can be here. You know, it's as simple as that. It's about being here. We can allow life to be the case, that we can live. Yeah. Without all the fear involved with the fear of the pain, actually. Yeah. Mm. Mm. More food for digestion.